The 8-step financial success plan to build wealth. And this is a detailed personal cash flow plan, also known as the PCP. What up, you got Mr. Smith, 0.5 of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And in this brief video, I want to talk to you about what you came here for, which is a game plan in order to build wealth. You see, many people have goals to build wealth, but many people don't have a game plan. And if you stick around to the end, you'll see that you'll have the ability to click the button or the link below so you can get access to the full system that allows you to implement everything. We're going to give you the plan, and it's something that you can take and run with. But if you really want to get access to the full system so you can have all of the tools, the resources, and the network that you need in order to fully succeed, click the link or the button available below. If you're already a part of the royalty movement, which is powered by my econ, then you already know what to do. So now it's time to do what you know. However, this will be a refresher, but it'll also be a reminder of where you need to spend more of your attention at so you can get the best results and continue to create your cash flow testimony. Continue to hit those financial goals so you can get closer and closer and closer to knocking out each step in this 8-step plan to building wealth. Without further ado, let's dive in. So this is the goal. The goal of this course is to give you a complete step-by-step financial blueprint to follow, which will create income and wealth for you and your family. You see, it's bigger than just you. You also want to understand the importance of building a generational wealth, which happens with you and your family. You see, the personal cash flow plan is a detailed plan on how to apply discretionary cash flow to put your finances each month to attain financial success. The 8-step process that starts with building the foundation and working your way through. Most people stumble because they skip the steps. See document 807. If you're a part of the royalty movement, you already have access to that document. And if you want to gain access to it, definitely take the next steps in order to get access to the system that'll give you everything that you need. But what I want to highlight is that most people stumble because they skip the steps. Now, when I say that, I'm not coming from a place of higher than anyone else or holier than thou. This is coming from experience. I've skipped steps as well. There was certain times we might have followed the steps, but there was other times we may have skipped some steps. So I'm speaking from experience, but the times that we have followed the steps, we've been beneficial. The times that we do, make sure that we are paying attention to the plan, then the plan tends to work out. So if you can avoid skipping the steps, then it'll definitely benefit you more than not skipping the steps. So that being said, let's continue. Step number 1, and I want you to be taking notes, screenshots, whatever you got to do, but hopefully you take notes because note takers are wealth creators. If you take notes, it's a higher chance of you actually implementing based on that being the first part of creation. Taking notes, writing it down. However, I know what day and age we're living in, so if you prefer to take screenshots, that's great as well. But more importantly, I want you to take action after this is all done. So step 1, generate cash flow. This is important because a lot of times when it comes to people building wealth, many times they just jump straight into wanting to invest, wanting to know what's the best place to put their money. But you want to generate additional cash flow because it's the additional cash flow that's going to allow you to do all of the things that you think you need to do a lot more seamlessly. What do I mean? So you want to build as much positive cash flow as possible. Now, where do all of these positive forms or streams of cash flow come from? I'll tell you. Number 1, a job. And I want to highlight this because a lot of times people have bad jobs and they say just over broke. You know, you're 9 to 5. You want to quit your job as soon as possible. That's not our position. However, if that's something you desire to do, then by all means you can do it. But in this example, what we want you to do is leverage your job. You see, a job can be a beautiful thing if you use them versus allowing them to use you. So we want your steady income to be your wealth creator, not something that you dread going into every single day. And when you understand this, now you walk up with your head held high because you know that they're just a part of your strategy to build wealth. When I was working a full-time job before I was working full-time from home with this business, I went to work with my head held high once I had this game plan, once I had a blueprint, because I knew that I wasn't just going to work just for the sake of going to work, just for the sake of working for the man or whatever other terminologies people want to use. I knew I had a blueprint and a game plan that I was chasing, so it just made it all worthwhile. So do not knock your job. Don't feel bad about your job, because not everybody is ready to jump off the porch and just jump into full-time entrepreneurship. But if that's you, then you know what to do. But make sure that you're leveraging your job, because your job can be the very thing that helps you build wealth until you no longer need the job. Now going to work becomes an option, not mandatory. Number 2, business income. You want to form some type of business income. We have a system, the system that I was speaking of, that you can click the button or the link below, that allows you to start generating business income. If you're already a part of the system, already a part of the membership, then definitely start generating business income, because that allows you to create as much positive cash flow as possible. More cash flow means that you're not digging into the money that you're already using to pay bills, say, whatever it is that you're doing. You have additional cash flow that you can use to hit your goals. Number 3, maximize cash flow via the W-4. This is powerful, because a lot of people don't realize that most Americans, over 100 million Americans, are overpaying in taxes because they have not maximized their cash flow via the W-4. What does that look like? On average, that's $100 to $1,000, and sometimes even more than that, per month, that a person is losing or leaving on the table by not maximizing their cash flow via the W-4. $100 to $1,000 a month. That could be $1,200 to $12,000 a year for most people. I want you to ask yourself, what could you do if we show you how to get that extra $100 to $1,000 back into your household? Could they help you hit your goals a lot faster? Could they help you get out of debt a lot sooner? Could they help you start building wealth via investing a lot faster? Absolutely. So I want you to really, really, really lean in on this. Don't get distracted. Remove all distractions. Pause the video if you have to, but remove all distractions, because this is an area that many people miss in terms of building their wealth. And if you have a job, this is the perfect way to maximize your cash flow via the W-4, which we teach you how to do that, because we understand that over 100 million Americans are overpaying in this area, and that money could go towards helping them hit their goals faster. Number 4, minimize taxes. You see, taxes is your biggest bill. It's not going to be the car note. It's not going to be the house note. It's not going to be the groceries. It's not going to be your kids or the college fund. You're going to pay more taxes than anything if you don't understand how to control it. And when we say minimize, that doesn't mean we're avoiding, evading. This means that we want to use the tax laws to your advantage to legally pay less in taxes. There's no need for us to overpay. We want to pay our fair share, and any other thing that we can do that uses our knowledge to legally minimize those taxes, we want to do that. And we want to teach you how to do it, because that tax money could be the very thing that allows you to build wealth, allows you to avoid going into debt, allows you to position your children to not have to get student loans or going into debt, because you were able to take your tax dollars and maximize them. Next, we want to minimize expenses. A lot of times people start here. That's pretty much budgeting, seeing what you can cut back on, but it's only so much you can cut back on. It's only so many streaming services and bills and off-brand groceries that you can purchase to minimize expenses. However, that is important, because many people are able to bring in an extra couple $100 just off of minimizing expenses, and this creates additional cash flow in addition to everything that we already listed. Last but not least, eliminate debt. Because once you start paying off debt, you're saving money on interest, but more importantly, once that debt is no longer there, once you paid it off in full, that money that once was going towards paying off debt just came back into your pocket. Once it's come back into your pocket, now you're able to take that extra money and apply it to something else. So eliminating debt, by all means, definitely allows you to generate more cash flow. And that's just step number 1. If that's not enough to make you click the button or the link below to go ahead and get enrolled, if you're not already a member, then I don't know what is. But that step is a solid foundation to everything else you're going to need to do in the following steps to really hit the ground running in terms of your wealth. and I highly recommend getting access to the system. But I want to give you what you came for. So let's go to step number 2. Step number 2, you want to establish what's known as an emergency fund, a contingency fund, just basically the cushion. Some people say saving for a rainy day. Whatever you want to call it, just have some money to the side, stash, whatever you got to do in order to make sure, just in case something happens, you have somewhere that you can access it. So basically a bank account with money set aside to cover large, unexpected expenses. Now, here are a couple of bullet points. Only used for true emergencies. And you'll know the difference between, an inconvenience or a true emergency. Only use it for true emergencies. That way you're not digging in it if you don't necessarily have to. We've done this time and time again, dug into the emergency fund several times because, we just thought, okay, let's just grab from that. And it really wasn't an emergency, but we wanted to grab out of it versus using some alternative methods that probably wasn't even, definitely wasn't to our benefit. But we want you to use it for true emergencies if you can avoid it. Next up is budgeted items don't count. So this is separate, not budgeted items as it relates to tapping into your emergency fund. We want you to have a true emergency fund, true cash flow that you don't necessarily have to touch. And it must be liquid. Liquid means you have easy access to it, so not tied up in an investment. Now, there's types of investments, and we'll get into that it can be placed in, but you want it to be liquid. You can get access to it 24 hours, 48 hours, 36 hours. You want to be able to get access to it pretty quick just in case you need it, because if it's in some type of long-term investment, then it's hard to get into it, and sometimes you can't even get into it because you have to be a certain age. If not, you end up paying a big penalty. So make sure it's liquid, and that helps you get access to it quickly. But if you put it in something like a municipal bond fund, a money market fund, a high yield savings, you're at least gaining interest. It's important to have your money working. Money likes to flow. That's why it's called currency, because it's important to have it somewhere where it's yielding some form of return. Otherwise, you're automatically losing money, because if money is just sitting somewhere not gaining any interest, by default, you're losing money, because that money will one day buy less just because of inflation. That's a whole nother conversation, but it's important. We thought it all out, and we want you to understand that when you have an emergency fund, put it somewhere where it's at least gaining some type of interest, growing to some degree. And then if you need it, you may have made some coins in the meantime. Next is immediately replace it if used. So if you use it, replace it. You have to pull out 500, replace it with the 500 as soon as possible. If you have to pull out 1,000, replace it as soon as possible. That way you keep it funded. Keep that cash flow available in the event that you actually need it. Step number 3. You want to do company 401k, 403bs, IRA, SELF. Basically, take advantage of a tax-deferred retirement plan. Many people have a job that has some type of retirement plan that if you contribute to it, they may also contribute to it as well. So if your company has some type of plan like this, take advantage of it. Take advantage of it, because it's almost like free money when you think about it. Plus, you're setting yourself up and your future self up for wealth before you tap into the real wealth that can be created through the next steps. So just as an example, a tax-deferred or tax-free account. There are places that you can put your money that allows you to get sometimes a tax deduction, saving you money on taxes. I told you, taxes is going to be your biggest bill. So we're big on you making sure that you are minimizing those taxes in more ways than one, because that money belongs to you, and that money should be going towards you building wealth, not the government, not anyone else. And sometimes you can do it in tax-free accounts. And sometimes the tax-free accounts may be tax-free on the back end, meaning your investments have already been taxed, but when it's time for you to pull that money out, you pull it out tax-free. Number 2 on this list is sometimes your company matches, and I know I spoke of this, but it's important because that's the free money I'm talking about. So if they match dollar for dollar, if you put in $1,000 and they put in $1,000, you got a 100% rate of return off of that alone. Sometimes they'll match up to a certain percent. It might be 6%. It might be whatever that percent is. Do what you have to do and make it automatic. See, this is automatic investing, because once you set it up, every time you get paid, it's coming out like clockwork. You're not even thinking about it. You've gotten accustomed to not needing that money, but that money is growing, and you look up and you have a nice little nest egg that hopefully helps you someday in the future. And you want to do a minimum of 5% into these contributions. I know sometimes for some people, it may feel like 5% is a stretch, like I can't do without that. But I guarantee you, if you try to do without 1%, You'll get accustomed to it, you won't miss it. Then you try to bump it up to 3%. You'll get accustomed to it and won't even miss it. Same is true with the 5%. You'll get accustomed to it and you won't even miss it, but it will still be yours. So it's not like you ever lose it, but just try to do a minimum of 5% in your contribution, and it'll add up over time. Step number 4, debt elimination. And we wanted to position you for these things because if you have your emergency fund in place, if you're investing into, your account associated with your job, and you've already done the things to create as much cash flow as possible, debt elimination becomes a lot easier. Debt elimination becomes a lot more seamless because you've already positioned yourself in other areas. Debt robs you of your investment dollars, so you must take it back. You see, if you have a whole lot of debt and it's attached to interest, the banks are making a return on investment on you having that debt. But that's less money that you can put somewhere else that can be growing on your behalf. So it's important to understand that debt elimination robs you of your investment dollars. So we got to take care of debt. We got to take care of it with a vengeance, especially if it's high interest debt, which brings me to the first point. Eliminate all high interest consumer debt. Mainly, this is going to be credit cards because credit cards are notorious for having high interest rates, and those things being revolving hit you every single month. They're taking a piece of your funds via the interest rate because the money that you're paying doesn't all go to the bill. If you're only paying the minimum balance, then you're only paying the interest, and it'll take you 100 years plus. Really, I think 300 or 400 years if you do the math. If you had a $5,000 debt and you only pay the minimum balance, it'll take you hundreds of years to pay that off. So you want to get in the habit of eliminating that high interest debt with that new cash flow that you're creating from all of the things that we said in step 1. So that way you're able to do it faster. Second point, do not pay off mortgage at this stage. I know it may seem good to just go ahead and knock out that mortgage, but in many cases the interest rate on the mortgage isn't as bad, so you don't want to pay that off just yet. You want to knock out some of the things that are hurting you the most right now, and we'll get to the mortgage later. This stage will help you build your credit. As you pay down your debt, especially that credit card debt, if you have credit card debt, it's going to boost your credit by default because of credit utilization. If you're keeping that utilization low, under 10%, our recommendation is under 10%. If you're keeping that utilization low, watch what it does to your score. Some people boost their credit score by over 100 points in a week, especially if it's about to report to the bureaus. So if you understand how it reports, you can boost your score quickly just off of paying down high interest credit card debt. Paying off your bills, car note, personal loan, things of that nature will also positively impact your credit score from an area of payment history. And then once it's finally paid off, it helps to lower your debt to income ratio. So it's a phenomenal process that creates a win-win scenario. Step number 5, max out your retirement. So now that you're going through the debt elimination process, you want to max out your retirement. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to tell you what to invest in, but there are certain categories that you can max out in terms of your retirement. So that way, when that year comes, you're in a position because you've been working on it for many years prior. You want to max out the legal amount towards your retirement. Certain accounts such as a Roth IRA, a SEP, a Simple, all of these accounts have a certain amount that you can put in per year. So what we're saying is max out in the areas that you can. And here we got a couple of examples of the annual contribution limits in the 401k, 403b, 457 thrift saving plan. At the time of this recording is $19,500. That's the max that you can put in. In the 50 plus, that means you're over the age of 50, you got a catch-up contribution of $6,500 for certain accounts. The IRA, $6,000. 50 plus, which is the age, catch-up contribution of an extra $1,000, depending on the account. Simple, $13,500. Another catch-up contribution, $3,000. But figure out what it is and what that number is for you and start maxing out that retirement, because now you're putting your future in your present. You're making your future a priority, because no one wants to get to a certain age of retirement and then they have to go get a retirement job, have to go get a whole nother job. Now, if you're doing it just to stay active, that's one thing, but a lot of people aren't doing it to just stay active. A lot of people are doing it because they need the cash flow, because they did not do what you're about to do and take advantage of this 8-step game plan, because they did not click that button or that link down below to get access to the system that gave them everything that they needed. They didn't take those steps, so they found themselves needing the money at the age of retirement versus having a surplus of it at the age of retirement by using these steps. Step number 6, you want to build a full emergency fund. I know you probably thought we were done with that extra cash flow, but we want you to have more money than you need and just have it in a place where it's accessible. So full emergency funds cover you in the event of a catastrophic loss, such as a job or medical expense. 3 to 6 months of living expenses. You should build this faster because you have eliminated some debt and you've increased your cash flow via step 1. But these days you might need 6 to 12 months of living expenses because, you know, this day and age, things are a little crazy. It all started in 2020. Even 2021, you know, has its areas of hecticness. So your emergency fund may need to be larger due to those things. So just understand what your expenses are on a monthly basis and having enough to cover that amount in your emergency fund, both your short-term emergency fund as well as your full emergency fund. Step number 7, now's the time where you can pay off mortgage because you eliminated debt. You started to max out your retirement accounts and invest. But now you're able to pay off their mortgage or buy a home. So if you haven't bought a home, this may be a good time to buy a home because if you buy a home, especially if you pay attention to buying it at the right price. Don't just buy it because everybody else is buying it. Don't just buy it because houses are selling quickly, because many times if you're buying it based on the houses selling quickly, you don't get the most bang for your buck. So start trying to buy a house and buy it with some equity already in the house. That's how we were able to do it, and a lot of people don't think like that, but what that does is remove a lot of headache because you're already right side up. You don't have to live in it 6 years before you can finally have some type of equity inside of your home. Now, you are now in position to pay off your mortgage if rented by a home, as I stated. Bullet point number 1, you will always need a dwelling. So it makes sense to have something that you own. Now, I know this is controversial. Sometimes people think you shouldn't buy a home. Some people think you should. You know, whatever floats your boat. But these are the steps that have been known to work for several different people who are wealthy to this day. Home ownership is a part of wealth building. Couple of different reasons why. The equity that we spoke of, that's one. And then if the area grows, then that heightens the value of the home, give you more equity and more leverage because you can always sell it, you can always rent it out, turn it into some type of, rental profit. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and it's something that can be passed down as tangible. So it is a part of wealth building, and it can be calculated into your net worth. That said, at this point, you are in a position to quickly pay off your mortgage due to everything that we've been doing. Now, many people may want to do this next step sooner than later. And I'm not here to knock you because this is an important part of the whole process. And sometimes this extra money that comes from step 8 that I'm about to get into can help you hit your goals sooner as well. But make sure you understand the reason why each step is here. The reason why each step is strategically placed so you can know where you are and know what you need to do in order to go through these steps in a way that follows the steps and at the same time position you for more cash flow and hitting your goals a lot sooner. So let's get into step 8. And if you have not grabbed the system already, definitely click the button on the link below. If you're already a part of the royalty movement, I'm preaching to the choir. But just understand where you are so we can apply pressure and help move you forward to hitting those next steps. We want to create more testimonies than we ever have, and it's going to be important for you to be implementing these steps and just really taking our guide and also just understanding the power that you have inside this system and the tools that go along with it. So that way you can start hitting those goals and it feels good. Now you build momentum based on the goals that you've already hit. And that's what we want for everyone who's listening to the sound of my voice right now. Step number 8, invest beyond retirement. This is the one I said I know a lot of people want to jump the gun on. And, definitely I recommend starting investing before you paid off a home and things of that nature because, if you're not investing, you're not even on the road to building wealth. But we just know that we want you to know that on step 8, that's when you can really ball out on investing. So that's what we mean by investing beyond retirement, because some of the investments that we spoke on earlier from a build your retirement standpoint includes all of these things. When you invest in the 401k, it includes stocks and sometimes bonds and different things. So you got to understand that we didn't leave investing out, but this is the ball out moment to where you're investing on top of investing on top of investing, and you're just doing what you can to make sure you have a solid financial foundation that's built on a foundation that's pretty much unbreakable if you do it the right way. So here's just a list of some things: stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, silver, crypto. Had to have the crypto in there. Mutual funds, ETFs, annuities, other businesses, because that's an asset as well if you're buying other businesses or starting and creating other businesses, as well as things like Forex. A couple of my favorites, and some are growing to be my favorites, but a couple of my favorites are crypto and ETFs. Stocks as well, but I love ETFs because it's great for the beginner and it diversifies your portfolio by default. And I'm growing to learn and love, Forex as well. But the long story short of this is you have to be investing in order to make sure that your money is working for you. It's one thing for you to work for your money. It's one thing for you to implement everything that we said about paying off debt, about minimizing expenses, about minimizing your taxes legally. But the purpose of that is to take that extra cash flow to get out of debt faster. And the purpose of getting out of debt faster is to position you to put your money to work so you can invest more. And when you invest more, you increase the chances of your rate of return being great enough to where now you position yourself for early retirement. Nonetheless, you position yourself to be able to retire comfortably without having to get what's known as a retirement job. So play the long game. I want you to use the buy and hold strategy on good mutual funds and ETFs, which ETFs is my favorite of the two. Play the long game, because a lot of times when people buy into a stock, if it goes down, they're ready to get out. But if you just look at the charts, if you just look at the company, it has an upward direction over time, which means that put your money in there and continue to put it in there. And if you see that it drops, that means buy more. Invest in the long game. Long game being 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, even beyond that, because the long game is where the real money is made. So make sure you're thinking as a long-term investor, not a get-rich-quick kind of thing. And you can take this with ETFs. You can take that approach. With crypto, you got to understand what you're doing because, it's volatile. But it definitely means that it's a lot of money that can be made. But play the long game in a lot of these investments, because that's where you can see the true growth. And in these examples, a good mutual fund and an ETF, when we say play the long game, the reason why is because, number one, it has lower volatility. It's less stress. You don't have to be looking at it all the time. When you're in an ETF, you don't have to be looking at it. Trust me, the people who are managing their ETF, and basically that's an exchange-traded fund, they are looking at it, because if it's any company that's inside of that bundle of stocks, if it's any company in there that's not performing to the level that they require, then they kick that company out and they bring a new one in that is performing. So it lowers your stress level. Tax advantage on capital gains. You see, when you make money with money, it's taxed less than if you went out and worked some overtime at your job. If you work overtime at your job, they're going to tax you more than if you put your money to work and that money went to work overtime. You're taxed less. And it's easy to do. It's easy to get into investing and getting the ETFs, and that's one of the things that we teach inside of the system. So we definitely highly recommend that you take full advantage of all 8 steps and take full advantage of everything that, you can get access to by getting inside the membership. The button or the link is available below. I hope you enjoyed these 8 steps. I hope you took notes. I hope you took screenshots. But more importantly, I hope you take action, because that's where the magic happens. Do not do yourself a disservice, your family a disservice, by not having access to the system that allows you to have a blueprint and a game plan and shows you how to put more money back in your pocket. Remember, step number 1 is showing you how to increase your cash flow. On average, that's $100 to $1,000. If we show you how to get $100 to $1,000 back into your household on a monthly basis legally, would it be worth you investing inside the system that costs pennies? Less than $40 you get access to the system. And this is not to sell you on it, because we know the value. If this isn't for you, then no big deal. No harm, no foul. We wish you the best. Take advantage of the 8 steps and implement them into your life, into your family. But if you know that you would love to have a system, a blueprint, guidance, tools, resources, network to help you hit your goals faster and more strategically, then by all means, we look forward to welcoming you to the team. And shout out to everyone who is already a part of the team. And make sure you're following this plan to the T, because that is what's going to be the thing that helps to create wealth long term. That's all I got for this video. Whoa, not yet, not so fast. In summary, investing does not have to be complicated. Build a foundation. There's an order in which you should build financially stable portfolio, or a financially stable portfolio. Now, insurance, although it was not discussed in this presentation, you must protect your investments, and insurance is the way to do it. And you are one of your investments as well. So what that means is you must protect yourself. See, insurance allows you to buy wealth before you can build wealth. I'm going to say that again. Insurance allows you to buy wealth before you can build wealth. Let's say, for example, that you had an insurance policy that covers you for $500,000. You may not have that in your portfolio. You may not have a net worth of $500,000, but when you pass, you have something that has $500,000 in value that you can leave behind. So you initially were able to buy wealth before you got a chance to building the wealth. Now, once you build the wealth, you may either want to increase your insurance, but nonetheless, you at least have built it, and insurance is just a bonus. So you want to have some life insurance, health insurance, disability insurance in the event something happens to you, and long-term care insurance. So these are just some things to consider. And of course, you have to get with someone who deals in this area. That's not our area of expertise, but we want you to just be protected on your journey to execute these 8 steps. And if you want to incorporate a financial advisor, choose a financial professional to help you with the rest of your financial needs. Interview at least 3 professionals before you just choose. So if you haven't already, click the link below, click the button below so you can take full advantage of the 8 steps, and understand that investing does not have to be complicated. The 8 steps doesn't have to be complicated. However, you have to hold yourself accountable, take action, and once you're in, we'll get a notification. We'll add you to our private group. We'll send you your next steps. We'll hold you by the hand every step of the way. And if you have questions along the process, then that's what we're here to assist you with as well. We will not leave you hanging. I know you can tell that we're everywhere you see us. We're not hiding from anyone. So definitely get access to the membership, and you'll be in good hands. That's all I got. Mr. Smith, signing out. You see, we live in a world where we are conditioned for failure, and oftentimes we have been programmed or fooled into mediocrity. So people find themselves living like peasants instead of the royalty that they were meant to be. But you see, here in the royalty movement, we see the king in you. I see that queen in you from start to finish. It's just time to take your seat on the throne, because this is where we uplift your character, your confidence, and your cash flow. As royalty, you should establish a solid financial foundation that will soon lead to your abundance and thriving empire. Take your seat on the throne. You are royalty. Salute.